Back to the crisis in Syria. My next guest says Putin is running circles around President Obama, while the United States struggles to look like a superpower. Joining us now, Senator Rand Paul, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Homeland Security, and Government Affairs Committee as well. Senator, good to have you with us. Let's turn first to this contest now between Putin and Obama for responsibility for the Syrian crisis. What do you make of it?
Well, you know, I think if we want to have a solution, it's best not to say, I'm stronger than you are. It's best not to act like we're in 7th grade and make this a match between juveniles. I think really, if we want to have a solution, the best thing is to concentrate on the problem and not, have these little tweaks back and forth. So I think ultimately there is a possible diplomatic solution here, and it's much better than the military outcome. No military outcome would remove any chemical weapons or make them less likely to be used. A diplomatic solution where they're removed from the country, though, does remove them from harm to Israel, to Jordan, to Turkey. So I think a diplomatic solution is so much to be desired that I would even put up with some of the, pinpricking from Putin and the, back and forth and tweaking that he'd like to do.
Referring, I assume, to the Vladimir Putin's op-ed in the New York Times, which he questioned American exceptionalism. At the same time, he entitled that op-ed a plea from Russia, which I thought was a rather modest expression for a man making some rather immodest proposals. Your thoughts?
Well, and if you read the beginning of the editorial, there is sort of a positive tone to begin with before he begins to lecture us. The other thing to remember is we've made some advancement here. Syria has never even admitted they had chemical weapons, neither has Russia. Now Russia and Syria both admit that Syria has chemical weapons. Syria says they'll sign the treaty, and they say they'll let international control take over the weapons. Now, that's a lot of words until we actually see it happen, so I don't know if they're sincere yet, but we've certainly moved the needle quite a bit from last week when Syria says we don't have any chemical weapons. So I think we are making progress.
That is certainly a positive development. The issue of taking a military strike by the United States off the table as a condition precedent to a turnover of chemical weapons, or at least identifying the chemical weapons within Syria. Do you think that is a reasonable proposition or one that the administration correctly resists?
I think it's weird how we're closer actually than we think we are. If you say it has to precede it, then that's a problem. What if it's coincident with? Really we get into a battle of words. If they're allowing international inspectors to come in and the weapons are moved to a neutral site and are guarded, and at the same time we say, well, there'll be no attack because you do this, I think, that sounds like a reasonable compromise. But the thing is we get into this battle of words. Do we have to say that before they do it or after they do it? And so I think really no reasonable person is going to promise in advance, but I think the promise should be the conclusion. There has to be something, some sort of exchange if you want a diplomatic solution. So if they are willing to turn over their chemical weapons, we think they're serious, then obviously it would take any sort of reason or compelling reason for having a military strike on them.
A military strike, talking earlier today with General on this broadcast, and talking with General Jack Keane, talking about the difficulty, if not the impossibility, of identifying correctly the sites of all of those chemical weapons within Syria, the difficulty of a military strike at this point, all but arguing for not even making the attempt because of what could not be achieved. Homeland Security Committee Chair Mike McCall saying he's seen intelligence and briefing that shows half the Syrian opposition has extremist elements. This is quite, as we proceed further and further into this confrontation between Russia, the United States, and of course Assad, and strangely in the middle of it all, because he is the problem. It seems incredible to me how little we actually know about how to proceed, because we don't understand who the people are actually involved in the civil war. We don't understand where the very object of our concerns, that is the chemical weapons, are located.
Well, and it's precisely the reason we shouldn't get involved in this civil war. We don't know exactly who the rebels are. The General Dempsey said less than a couple of months ago it's increasingly difficult to decide who separate out friend from foe. But the other side, and President Obama glibly say, we will vet out the moderates. I defy them to tell me who the moderates are and who they aren't. I mean, when people line up for their service to air missile, they're going to tell you in Arabic or broken English, we are your friends, but can we trust them? We're having trouble separating out friend from foe in Afghanistan. It's a much more stable situation. We've had 100 of our soldiers killed by people who joined the Afghan army saying, oh, we're friends of America, until we turn our back and then they shoot us in the back. Syria is a much messier situation. It's full of al-Qaeda, full of extremists, and estimates range from a low of 15 to 20% to as high as 50% of them being extremists who don't believe Israel has a right to exist. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We really just, if we destabilize Assad, we embolden al-Qaeda. It's a mess and we shouldn't be involved.
And Senator Paul has been saying precisely that from the outset. Senator Rand Paul, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.